relying on technology, hey? It says we're streaming. We'll just keep an eye on it before we start what we want to talk about. Oh, here we go. I think it's there. Good morning, lovely Rachael Robson-Green joining me today as we get naked. How are you, sweetheart? It is an absolute honour to be sat with you here today.
Likewise, lovely Vanessa. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. And yes, it's a joy and a privilege to be having this conversation with you live. Well, yeah, join us live as well, because we'd love to get some comments. This is going to be a juicy discussion, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. And we only met a few weeks ago, and we've had hours already of conversation about what's important to us. So it's no surprise that, to me, what's so important is how all of us, the necessity to live naked. What's important to you, Rachael, and where shall we begin? Because we've got lots of juicy things to talk about.
We have so much, and this could go for much longer than half an hour.
Yeah,
focused. And I'm going to start with that naked. You know, what does that mean for me, and what I'm experiencing and what I'm uncovering at the moment is the masks that we wear. So, you know, kind of getting naked is, you know, for me, is peeling back those layers of what the expectations have been on us, where people have judged us, where we feel we should be doing certain things. And actually, if we show up with those masks, we can't really connect with others, and we're not connected to ourselves. So it doesn't feel authentic. And what I'm noticing is, as soon as I step into vulnerability, and I know Brené Brown talks about this much better and more eloquently than I will right now with all of her years of research, but if we can step into being vulnerable as well, and being open and open to understanding ourselves, and to reaching out to others, and open to an awareness of, okay, so how do I get to show up? How am I showing up? You know, what am I creating?
Yeah, so that absolutely.
So that, you know, kind of we can peel back those layers and kind of show up as who we really are. That's what being naked means to me, is really getting back to the heart of who we are.
Love it.
All the ways that we prevent ourselves from doing that, right? Or we've learnt ways of being that prevent us from doing that.
And we don't know that that's what we're doing, I think, which is the reason we are wearing the mask that we don't know we're wearing.
Yeah.
Because it's actually who we believe we are, because of how we've been brought up, how we've been educated, the world we live in. So we are surrounded, majority, such a high percentage of the time, probably 90% of the time, maybe even higher, of perpetuating the same story.
Absolutely.
So therefore we don't know who we are without that, because we've titled this today, after discussing it for hours, holding on for dear life.
Yes.
And we both understand what that means to us individually. And what we would love to do today is just share what that means to us, the damaging effects of holding on, how to let go. These are all phrases that are bandied around, and we'll go, yeah, that makes so much sense. I get it. But then the next step is how? What does it actually mean? How does that look like? What does that look like for me? How do I show up in the world, letting go, being in the now, surrendering is another one, being present. These are all phrases that we hear such a lot.
Yes.
And I would love to discuss further for the next few minutes is, how can we de-jargonize, Rachael, so that everyday people like you and I, so we can all be in the discussion of what does that actually mean to me, and how do I rise above, dare I say it, the shitty mess, the chaos that we're all experiencing as a nation and across the world over the last few years, but also now. It just is seemingly, and I say seemingly because again we know what we mean by that, in this outside world. How do we get past that, push through that, rise above that, whatever it means to you? Because and that's why I'm glad that you said heart, and I just drew a little heart on my page. For me, naked is making a journey of no distance from head to heart. We overthink stuff because that's how we've been taught to be in the world. And how do we calm this down from overthinking, keeping us anxious, stuck, longing for more, striving, into a place where if we just truly took a moment to pause, breathe, and feel our beating hearts,
Yes.
and strive from that place.
Yeah.
It seems such a difficult thing to do because we're so out of practice.
It does. And it does take practice. And I'm just going to pick up on a couple of things that you said, because there's so much richness in there. I knew there would be. First of all, what happens is it's deeply unconscious. So, we get to forgive ourselves for all the ways that we create, what's happening or feeling like we're holding on too tight, because I don't think we do that. We then can be really self-deprecating about, well, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be we should all over ourselves, basically. And so
I like that.
Those patterns and those stories are deeply unconscious, a lot of them. And so, kind of turning the dial and turning the dial up on the awareness takes time. So, we do need patience with ourselves. We get to have grace and compassion for ourselves in this process. And I have learned that. It's not an easy lesson either.
No.
And we are so used to overwhelm. There is this overwhelm in our system. There's been overwhelm in society. You mentioned what's been happening, nationally, globally, what we've been through in the last 2.5, 3 years. These are not small things. And you add that on top of how we're being in the world, and the fear that's been around that. There's a huge overwhelm there. It's no wonder we're all kind of here. And all the ways we stay stuck in our stories. I want to, kind of pick up on that, the patterns, and they are stories, but we're really convinced by them because they're events. They're the presenting reality. And
absolutely.
And that's compelling. That's, we think that in order to, we need to see it to believe it. And
brilliant.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite way around. I know we're both a big advocate of Wayne Dyer, who talks about that a lot. Absolutely. Just very quickly on that point, you said about they're compelling because we know about them. A Course in Miracles, this is one of my favorite quotes, and this had me grounded in 2017 for a good few days until I worked out what it meant to me. We believe in the insanity because we created it, but we do not believe in love because we did not. And then I changed a couple of words around to help myself understand it. But as I share it again with a few words changed, it resonated more with more people. We believe in the bullshit stories we tell ourselves because we created those. We don't believe in who we truly are because we didn't create that. And so therefore, we believe in the insanity of those stories because we created those. And that's where you said it's so compelling, because that seems to be true, because why wouldn't it be? That's come from me. So I think, but it's not, it's come from here, not here.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is the bit where when you dive into it, actually how we've created it, it's between 0 and 7. It's when we're very, very young
and unaware.
And it can be very simple things where we've had perhaps I'm going to call it a reaching out movement, but we've looked for love. We've wanted love and connection from our parents initially, or from people around us. And perhaps in that moment, we haven't had it. And I know a lot of people will have experienced lots of different things within their childhood. And, kind of, it will be on a sliding scale, kind of in terms of that. But even if it's just a parent turning away in that moment,
absolutely,
that
no malice,
translate it as I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, and very unconscious. And then all of the stories that we create around, well, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm unlovable. And that's how we go forward into the world. And you think about, you mentioned, kind of school, parents, culture, society, all these paradigms that we're surrounded by are compelling and are powerful. And we're finding our way to fit into them, fit into what's outside of us first, rather than doing the fitting into who we are. And
absolutely,
I say, because we're up here, we want to figure it out. We want to be stuck in the how, whereas actually sinking into, kind of who the heart. I notice this for myself as well, all the ways that it feels really difficult to do that sometimes. Actually kind of feeling into the feelings, where a lot of us are taught that those feelings are scary. They go under the rug, like no, nothing to see here. rather than being held in experiencing those emotions.
Yes.
I think, learning how to do that is a big part of managing the overwhelm as well, allowing that process to happen, feeling the feelings, and then, kind of coming out the other side of that, because you get to process them when they're stuck in the system and they're stuck in you.
Well, that's the thing.
It comes into that place again.
Yeah, as a small child, your mum looks away. You're so used to just being. We're born divine, whole, and complete, right? It's only then as we journey step by step in life that we become who we think we are rather than who we actually are. And by just that mum turning away, to use your example, we then, the way we cope with the heartbreak of mum not looking at me when I reached out, we decide something for ourselves, and that's what gets locked in the system energetically. Because as I understand it, emotions are energy in motion, and if that energy gets trapped, stuck somewhere, anywhere in our system, in our physical system, then if it's blocked, it only wants to express itself. So if it's trapped with that kind of, she doesn't love me, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable, then it's going to keep repeating itself, whirling up, a bit like a walnut whip or a volcano, should we say, until it later in life, and it, somebody doesn't return your text or pushes in front of you in the queue, and boom, all of a sudden, and it's like, all right, love, calm down. And it's like, I don't actually understand what just happened there,
or where it came from.
You only walked it, where it came from. And this is the other thing I love. It seems to come from nowhere.
Yes.
Whereas it's very much, if you separate the W and the H, it's now here. It comes from right here, right now, because that little bit has triggered something right down low.
Yes.
And we talked earlier about and I've just written here that white knuckle ride, right? As you're holding on, and it's like, because this is what I know. Don't take it away from me. It's like the dummy from the baby or the parent from a child, right? Preschool. I know this. Don't take it away from me.
Yes.
So how I love, because this is the part of my work which I just love the most. How do we help other people recognize, including ourselves? How do we recognize when I'm in a pattern? Whether it's my fault or not, right? Because I'm subjected to a world, and before I really understand what's going on, it's no one's fault. We're like we are.
There's no blame, shame, guilt, or fault. This
absolutely.
is
it is what it is, but only when I decide to look at it and I'm brave enough to acknowledge what's going on, can I then accept it for what it is.
Yes.
And the other part, the accept, which I love, which is a massive part of the recovery program, is accept that and there is something bigger than me.
Yes.
I'm not it. This isn't it.
Yes.
And then I can allow that to help me move on.
Meet me.
Yeah. So we might know we're angry. We might know we're a bitch. We might know we're stroppy or moody or grumpy or stressed or retreat, and hibernate and isolate rather than choose to be in solitude. But then if I know that about myself, great. How is that helpful? And what do I do next?
Yes.
So what do I do with that?
What do I do with that? And I think this is the dichotomy, because we think we need to do something.
Exactly.
And actually, it's much more simple than we think it is. Like all the ways we want to make it really complex for ourselves. That, just like me. And I just thought, before we go into that, I wanted to pick up on something that you said about the emotions and kind of suppressing those emotions. Years of suppressing those emotions, and it is going to do that. And what we resist persists. So you get more of what you focus on.
Absolutely.
And resisting yourself going into that and experiencing it, because it is scary. And being here and holding on and going, I'm just going to stay here and not deal with all of the things, because of the fear of letting go.
Because we don't know what's on the other side of that.
Don't know what's on the other side of it. And actually, and words don't teach, right? I can sit here and say everything that you want in life is the other side of fear, and you go,
that's great, but how does that actually apply
right now? I'm not really feeling that.
I'm hanging off a cliff at the moment.
I'm like this, and I don't know what to do next. And in fact, my day yesterday was a perfect example of kind of amazing highs of yay, big win, and then soul crushing lows of oh gosh, really experiencing different emotions. We can be in this at any one time, and we're here for this. We are here for the journey. So I think the first step is forgiving yourself, is acknowledging, okay, you know, I get to experience this. And I love that you said about the isolation part, because I think we have to figure it all out on our own. You know, and we were talking about this before, like, you know, kind of wearing these badges of, look at the sacrifice, you know, look at all the amount of that I've had to suffer, and martyrdom, and I, you know, kind of get statues built for us because, you know, of how much we've sacrificed. And actually, it's not about, you know, doing it on our own and sacrificing. It is about asking for support, and a lot of times we can't see these patterns, these unconscious behaviors, and we do need help to unpick it. And, you know, hands up as a single mum, all the ways that I have absolutely done this. No, I can do it on my own. Look at me, I'm the strong one, doing the strong woman number, like we do, and strong men number. I know there are men out there that do this too, and I'm learning how to ask for support. I did it yesterday, you know, and it felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely, because we think it's going to say something about us, especially if we do this very well. Aren't I good? I can manage, thank you. And then actually, have I got to take my badge off? And I've actually got to look and feel vulnerable. That's the biggest thing. That's about my second top value for the work I do. First one being love, vulnerability. If I'm not willing to be vulnerable, it ain't going to change. It's just not going to change at all. And it's interesting you use the word support, because we live in a world with billions of other people. And I'm sure many of us are very blessed to have gorgeous people in our lives, whether that's friends, family, neighbors, work colleagues, whoever it might be. That's just one way to ask for support, to receive support. My biggest passion is, making sure I'm surrounded by beautiful people to support me, and also being part of a beautiful circle of people to support whoever, anybody else. But the other part of support, which I know that for me is the game changer in all of this, is this support, the higher power, that thing that we surrender to, the invisible thing. Because I see you, I love you, I think you're great. I go, Rachel, oh my God, darling, could you absolutely, what brilliant. That's it, that's inevitable, right? But and if you can't, that's fine. But I get to speak you, I get to see you, I get to hear you. I wouldn't taste your, smell your, whatever, but you get here, you get my point. You're available to me, to my senses. What's not necessarily available to us is that higher power.
Tangible piece,
it's the tangible bit. And because I'm so used to desk, laptop, you know, reality, body, earphones, pen, etc., that for me is reality, as they call it with a small r. Reality with the capital R is, what is it, as I talk about, that power that's turning the world, growing the grass, and beating our hearts. It's limitless. It's forever, ever, 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 ever. The biggest of the biggest of the biggest. There isn't a word for it. Right down to it does all of that. And it's actually beating our hearts.
And it's in us. And it's in us. And how do we connect to limitless possibility? How do we even believe in that and trust that there's limitless possibility?
Well, it's interesting. The nature for me is one of the biggest examples of that. I think, you know, for people to say, I don't believe, they go, that's absolutely fine. And it's not a religion thing, and it's not God, or you can call it Fred, for all I care. But what is it that, you know, toasts your bread, or grows the trees, or opens the flower, or moves the, you know, the motion of the ocean, right? That grows our hair, right? That's what we're talking about. Doesn't matter to me how you understand it, but if there is the easiest way I do describe it is what's beating your heart. What's beating your heart? We're not attached to anything. I'm not plugged into the wall like a lot of things are, lamps and stuff like that. They're not. So we are. There is an unbroken connection that is, and that's the bit. So how can we receive support from here, as well as receive support from people and the world around us?
Part of that, and you say an unbroken connection, and what I'm experiencing in the clients that I see and within myself in this journey is that the connection has felt broken. That we haven't connected with that part of ourselves. And you know, I would say again, it feels really intangible, this piece of it. and perhaps that it's that piece that we can't allow. It's not that we can't allow it to land. We know it's a niggle. Like we know that perhaps it's, you know, that there's something else. You know, there's something else, that maybe it's that you feel that you are meant for more. You're not really living your purpose in the way that you want to. What does purpose even mean to you?
Yeah.
But there's something in you that knows there must be something more. There must be something bigger than you and this. And that's the place to start and get curious, because you know, words don't teach, again, within this, and it is a personal journey, and you and I can share our experiences, and somebody else might be experiencing it differently, but it starts with that connection. I keep doing this because it is going into your heart.
Absolutely.
Feeling into, so what is here? What are the feelings that I'm not allowing myself to feel? And it does start with love. It does start with feeling into the higher vibrational feelings of love and joy. And it could be something very simple. It could be today, beautiful sunshine.
Yeah. Just
standing outside, feeling your feet on the ground, and taking a deep breath in and just appreciation.
Yeah.
You know, this moment, you know, the sun on my face, feeling, you know, kind of the breeze, whatever it is for you. Just start small, start in that moment, start with that conscious pause and that conscious awareness, and go from there. Because you know, we are constantly rushing. We have this fear of missing out, especially at the moment. There feels like, and this is why we decided to do this, and you know, kind of holding on for dear life and holding on too tight, because we would say, I mean, I don't know about you, I'm saying yes to a lot of things, all the ways that I get to, you know, lean into my boundaries and say no to things as well, but the fear of missing out, everything feels important. We've missed out on so much from the last 2 to 3 years, and now we get to be out in the world again. We get to be out with each other, and we want to be doing that. And even now, it's more important than ever to learn how to balance that.
Yes.
And to recognize, what do I need for myself? I think I'm noticing that people are more discerning about what that is for them, you know, and it could be this work-life balance, you know, which is again a phrase, but it's about balance. Balancing what it is that you really want, and deciding on that, and then taking steps towards it, and coming from a place of clarity in who and what that feels like to you, you know.
And that's the bit that I think confuses people, because the big word for each of two things here is, it starts with love, definitely, because actually love is all there is. Everything else is an extension of that, or an absence of that.
Yes.
We think it's a big lightning
opposite.
It absolutely, it's, you know, it's there's light and there's dark, but dark isn't the opposite of light. Dark is the absence of light. It's like fear is the absence of love. There is only one energy. And I've just written a lightning bolt thing here as well, because, you know, like you said, by going outside and just feeling the sun on my face while it's lovely today, bare feet on the ground, is awesome, and a beautiful way to be present with the energy of the now, right? But so many of us go, but you know what, I haven't got time for that. Wow. You know, do we not even make a cup of tea or go to the toilet, or, you know, whatever it might be, answer the phone, right? Breathe, exactly. So if we've got time to do that, we've got time to do this. And I think the thing for me is overlooked, because that seems so simple, Rachel. So pretend I'm your client. That seems so simple, but how is that going to make a difference? For me, I'm just like, well, you can't take step 1 if you don't take step 2. And also, I think we're conditioned to believe it needs to be boom. You know, it's like that. What do you call it? That finger that comes out of the lottery. Yeah. It's you. I'm going to get this massive, like, oh my God, and turn us on our head, and off we go in a completely different direction. No, yes. I call it turning the Titanic. Right? Yeah. I've got to make a decision. Oops, iceberg, and turn the wheel, hold the line, as I call it, and just keep going, keep going, keep going. And it's those simple things like breathing, and like we said before we came on the call. For me, a big thing is if I'm like, do you know what, I'm too tired to do that today, like, you know, because I get up forward to my meditation, I could be like, you know what, no, I'm having a lovely cuddle, I don't want to get up, or it's too early, or actually, I'll do it later, whatever. Then I have trained myself to say, but Vanessa, what's the alternative? Because the alternative, if I don't, is a place I do not want to go.
Yes.
Why I'm doing it is because I just want to feel better. I want to feel better because that's where I feel strong. That's where I feel that I have the clarity, and that's where I'm connected. And I call it, as Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it, a date with the divine.
Yes.
That for me is the most important relationship
You.
beyond anything. And I love my people, but the most important relationship I have is that date with the divine, higher self, whatever you want to call it. And it can be 10 seconds.
Yes. It
Pause,
does.
breathe, feel my beating heart, breathe 3 times.
Yes.
That's actually all we would suggest
to start
in the beginning. Yeah.
And
then
just start.
And try it, and please message us back and say, do you
Yes,
know what, actually, thank you for that breathing 3 times. That actually really helped. And why does it help? Why do you think breathing is a really good place to start?
Well, the neuroscience first. So we'll go in from the neuroscience angle, because the reality is usually the thing that will grab people, right? And the scientific element. And I love what you're saying, because I think this is where we get underneath. Okay. And I'm just going to say, before I say about the neuroscience, the simplicity.
Yeah.
All the way. Just notice all the ways you make it really complex and difficult for yourself.
Yeah.
Then you can wear the badge.
Yeah. Nobody really cares about the badge, actually, really, anyway, do they? You do. We do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, kind of, we're mirrored, you know, kind of, there's so much complexity around us. I think that's the way of being. And like you say, it is so simple. We feel like we need to get this lightning bolt, this epiphany, like this and what's the word, evangelical awakening that happens. And actually it's much more simple than that. And it starts, you know, kind of with that. It can start just with that breath.
Totally.
And what technically happens when we are holding on too tight like this, and you know, kind of, we're holding on for dear life, we're in survival mode, we're in fight or flight. And a lot of people, hopefully, that are hearing this will be aware of what that is. We're in our sympathetic nervous system, like everything is heightened. And people will probably have heard of that, comes from when we were cave dwellers and running away from the saber-toothed tiger. We needed to be in that state to survive. So it is sheer survival mode. Being in that state for a long period of time is what, you know, kind of means that our system then gets overwhelmed. We get into burnout
and starts to deteriorate. It eats, literally, the cortisol produced eats away at our cells.
It does, because actually, you know, your cortisol is coursing through you, and you know, this is not good for you. And actually, people go from this, and then they go into a numbing behavior. Perhaps it's, you know, kind of perhaps it's alcohol, perhaps it's cigarettes, maybe it's caffeine to keep you going. So your system is literally doing this, you know, kind of it's crashing and it's up, and it's crashing and then it's up, and that's
exhausting in itself.
Exhausting. So the simple way that you just take it, and actually a lot of people don't know how to take a deep breath. Actually breathe into your belly.
We think we do that, don't we, rather than
up here,
diaphragm.
Kind of really breathing into your whole system, and then holding it at the top. So if you breathe, just something simple like box breathing. People may have heard of box breathing, where you breathe in for 4 and you hold it for 4, and then you breathe out for 4. And then just by doing that 2 or 3 times, what you're doing is you're resetting your nervous system. You're going into parasympathetic system, which is the rest and digest state that allows your body to reset.
Brilliant. Glad you said that.
Your body will actually then help you to recenter. And you will notice that instead of being, and I'm doing this because this is where it is in the limbic brain back here, the unconscious, subconscious part that we talked about, where all those patterns and stories live, it brings you back into the prefrontal cortex, where we make logical decisions from. So if you're in that moment where you're stressed and you're here and you've got to make a decision from there, it's not going to be a good decision. It's not going to be the decision with the outcome that you want.
Love that.
Because it gets to come from here. And what occurs to me in doing this as well is intentionality. We don't actually need to get stuck in the how.
No.
We need to be clear on our intention.
That the allow bit comes from being clear on what it is. An intention is actually, what is it I actually want?
Yes.
The glorified word for, you know, what do I choose? What's my, you know, what do I want to experience?
And start with the breath. Because how do you do it? If you're in that moment and you recognize, because there is something around, I think it was Mel Robbins, and this really helped me. So there's two people that really helped me stop all of the voices that were in my head telling me how rubbish I was, and that I couldn't do it. And one of them was Dr. Shivali Sabari, who teaches.
She's awesome.
She's amazing. So if anybody, look up her books. She is a wonderful spiritual teacher as well. And that helped me with the conscious pause, because I recognized all the ways that I wasn't being the parent I wanted to be. So, I credit my daughter for bringing me back to that sense of who I really am. And Mel Robbins, and I know that we could talk about the 5-second habit, but what I want to talk about is think this, not that. So those thoughts,
this the choice,
flipping them, going, okay, so I'm saying this about myself. What do I want to replace that with? And it's that small shift over time
and practice
that helps you build different. Actually, technically, neuroscience has proved it builds different neural pathways. So
Absolutely.
You're not then defaulting to the fight or flight, or defaulting to the negativity, or defaulting to the stories in the past. Recreating something
and repeating it is what strengthens the connections. The new connections that you make is repeating it, because if we do it once, we do it a couple of times. It's like baking a cake or a recipe. You do it once, it's only after time do you then put the recipe book away. And the interesting thing is, you talked about the whole brain thing, which I absolutely love. That's a big thing for me too. Slightly deeper for that for me is very much we want to be able to think clearly from here, which is the 40% of our brain, right?
Yes.
For me, and that calms our beta brainwaves down.
It does,
right? And it to rather than high beta, which is like, oh my god, it's anxious, that thing is running after me. So mid-range and low, so I'm relaxed and I'm just aware of what's going on. Deeper than that, when you go into alpha, your body starts to feel more relaxed because your head can feel clearer. But for me, this is where my passion is the body is where everything is trapped. This is the story I tell myself, but this is where everything's trapped. I can say affirmations till the cows come home and I can feel amazing. But if I'm not moving past that block that is trapped in my body, my physical body, which is energy trapped, then it's paint on rust for me. So it's so begin there, absolutely. So if you're not used to doing this, and we'll need to wrap up soon, but if we're not used to doing this, absolutely breathe. Think this, not that. I love that. Brilliant. We'll pop that in.
Yes, well, we can expand on that another time, because getting underneath those thoughts that we tell, the things that we think and things we tell ourselves.
Absolutely. So that's a really great. If I know I'm thinking unlovely, as I call it, because the evidence is I just feel crap.
Yes.
That will tell me I'm not thinking very well. That's serving me. So I can think this, not that. But to just keep to have a couple of breaths to just calm yourself, to be able to think clearly from a place that will help me. Brilliant. The better you get at this, in my experience, that's when we really begin to drop into the heart center, and we allow the heart to feed the brain thoughts. Not what do I think I want to think.
Yes.
What does the power want me to think? What does my heart want me to think? And then when it comes from here, which is the support from the original power, if you like, when it activates my heart and I can think from my heart, and then I feed back down, when it goes that way, awesome.
Yes.
If I'm too much in my head and I think I want to do this, and personal preference, as I call it, then great. Practice that, get used to feeling better, and then go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Whew, your life changes massively.
I absolutely agree. And people may experience this as intuition. They experience that as instinct, so grab hold of that. That's the magic.
Play with it.
Practice it, because it does take practice. And I, hands up, I'm still practicing that connection, deepening that connection.
It's an everyday.
It is an everyday, because it speaks to trusting yourself. And I'm noticing that in my journey at the moment as well, is all the ways that I haven't trusted myself and I haven't felt enough. And now I get to really feel into that part of it, and trust from my heart here, not overthinking what it is that I'm doing. Like, who is it that I want to be? How do I want to show up? And trusting myself to be enough in that moment. So
you have the most beautiful heart, Rachel. just from the moment I sat next to you,
Vanessa.
in a room full of 35 odd people,
Yes.
I just knew I was sitting next to a truly beautiful soul. And I'm really glad we connected, and we could sit and make notes and talk for hours and hours and hours. So let's do it again. Let's have another chat. Yes. Let's get naked again. That'd be nice.
Let's get naked again.
And we'll do just a little follow-up post or something. We'll just share some of the tips and things that you shared. Thank you. And I'll add some of my simple things so that we can just, and I think finishing, I'll ask you to share just a final thought. But for me, once I accepted the fact that if I was just brave enough to acknowledge that, you know what, it's all a bit crap, or I don't feel very good, or I want to make this change, or whatever it might be, right? I want to stop making that choice. If I can just acknowledge that, this is the formula of my work, which I love, accept the fact that I am where I am, it's okay. I am where I am because of the choices I've made and the choices I've allowed others to make for me, right? Once I own that, then, I get goosebumps. That's when I believe the power is going, okay, we see you, we hear you, we feel you, we know you're serious. Let it go. Oof. Give it over. Yes. Choosing to give it over to me is surrender. And then would you just please keep stepping. There's no forwards, there's just stepping. Whichever direction you go in, we can see you if you move. Even when you're choosing to be still, we can still see you. Then allow the power. And we'll talk more about that, because I think that's the difficult part for people.
Yes, and we talked
it's not easy.
It's not.
It is simple.
Yes, it is. And we talked about being responsible, but again, I think that's for a whole other time.
Yeah.
And again, to wrap up, I know that you mentioned about, you know, kind of you're feeling it in your body. Just a very simple technique. I did it this morning to a fabulous song that I love. She doesn't pay me to promote her. Extraordinary Being by Emily Sandé. And I just danced around the kitchen.
Yeah.
Shift. Just move your body.
Move.
Do something different, because that does help, and it does raise your vibration. Reach out. If you are struggling,
that could even be your movement, couldn't it? You could literally just I just help. I'd like your help.
Reach out to someone. Honor how you're feeling, as you say. Allow, trust, surrender, accept what is as is in that moment. It's super powerful. And we get to explore this on another time as well, because there's so
bit
much
by bit,
bit by bit,
day by day, moment by moment. You can't eat all the cake at once.
No.
Some might like to try.
No, and have grace and compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm really learning this as well, that
that's a good one.
We feel that we should be all these different things, or we should be further on than we are. You are where you are, and have grace and compassion for yourself in the process. And
absolutely.
We're just talking then. I just took a wonderful deep breath as you going, allowing, surrendering. Like, yes, I don't have to do this on my own. I can choose differently. And
we're sort of not anyway, are we? But never really once we've accepted,
we isolate ourselves in many ways, disconnection. So just breathe, trust, reach out, know that you're supported, and start there.
In every way, exactly, and practice it. Just a couple of seconds. It doesn't have to be massive amounts.
Yes.
But bless you. Thank you so
much for inviting me. It's been glorious. You are glorious, and
likewise, ditto, my lovely, and mirror. Bless you. God bless. Have the most gorgeous day. Enjoy the sunshine.
And you.
I will definitely look forward to catching up with you again very soon, my lovely. Thank you for your time and your energy. You're gorgeous.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.